The pitch is actually the crystallization of that test when you are presenting to VC, because the clearer your vision is, like how much you have answered all the holes of your business idea, the more you can actually convey it in a short deck, a pitch, and that is crystal clear proposal. And that's why the pitching exercise is really an exercise is have you work on the clarity of your business enough or answer some critical questions that you could sell it in a very crystal clear way. Is everything over? Shall we give up on the gaming industry now? Shall we stop trying making games, building studios and companies that have the power to positively impact the future lives of millions of players, professional and humans? No, we don't. In this special track of Rise and Play, I will be focusing on the unspoken topics around building game companies, founders teams, fundraising, pitching, rebouncing after closing your studio company or losing your job, by bringing guests who are going through the same storm of 2024 like you and keep fighting. I will also share openly my own process, trials and error, and step-by-step building the new game company Kylan as the first-time CEO of a game company. I believe we are stronger together, and we don't have to go through the storm alone, because at Rise and Play, we are not alone. Oh, and one last thing. As you feel supercharged by listening to this episode, it will mean a lot to me, and if you haven't done it yet, that you hit the follow button. It will help with the discovery of the show so other people can benefit from the content too. Thanks, and now let's get to the episode. So hi everyone, I will not speak too much because I'm again not the host on that podcast today. I'm with Clair Rozain, who is going to interview me on a topic that we found quite fascinating and also really in the theme for 2024 about pitching and fundraising, and especially in my own journey of entrepreneurship, building a game company, what I wish I knew before pitching, especially in 2024. As a reminder, Claire, already we did an episode before on why I founded a company at the worst time of industry. So please check it for the context of that conversation today. And Claire also is on an exciting venture as well, getting started, where she's a founder of Youth Wave. And the mission, after spending time in Africa and discovering where are real problems, to solve and where are the needs, bringing games and content from Africa to the world. So Claire, welcome again on the podcast to grill me on some questions today.
Hello, Sophie. I have a burning question and I hope you are ready for it. How do you feel about it?
It's okay. I think I get used to it at the beginning. I throw myself here in that conversation, and the main intention is not to have all wisdom and answer. Otherwise, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing, but it's more, what are the answers I have today, and that especially the trial and error and mistakes that I made that others shouldn't be doing in the future, especially in 2024, which is a very special context.
And we are going to speak about it, Sophie. I think you have a lot of experience and also precious knowledge to bring to us. So today we are going to speak about what I wish I knew before pitching in 2024. So Sophie, I have a first question for you. So we all speak about it, but what is pitching and raising money? It makes me crazy. I don't understand why people need it to create a mobile game. Like, what is this?
Sometimes I ask myself, do we really need it? So maybe let's start with a definition here where fundraising is really the process of raising money, and it could be from any sources. It's not even doesn't mean VCs specifically. And pitching is the process of presenting your idea to people who are stakeholders that can influence the future of your business, right? So they could be partners, they could be people you hire, and they could be also people who invest in you, money, network, knowledge to help you grow. So two distinct activity, but they are correlated when you are fundraising, because when you are fundraising, you need to pitch. So let's start with that. And to the second question that you asked as well, why do we need to fundraise? It's a good question, actually. I think it has come with legacy, because I must say I haven't tried to raise 3-4 years ago, but I know people around me who have raised, and there were fewer. So they were, in that sense, braver to build a company where others were comfy in their jobs, doing a lot of cool and fun stuff, having a good, stable salary, responsibility. I was also in that bag, right? So why will I go through the trouble of building a company where I can do what I would want to do in a company, but with security? And so they were rewarded with that wave of entrepreneurs 3-4 years ago, not necessarily coming from games, because the ones coming from games have emerged as well are new. So just VCs out of games also. So, okay, games are really booming and we need to invest in it. So there were really first conversation at a different time, and there were probably a lower offer than there was offer in terms of companies, pitching, than the demand from VCs to find, the deal flows and so on. And in 2024, it's the complete opposite, where you are competing with everyone who wants to build a company for several reasons. Layoff, it's a big one. I was a segment of the industry that is senior enough and wants to do the next thing. And because there's that wave of entrepreneurs, like, why not me? I could say also I'm part of it. And when the interest rate are higher, you hear VCs investing in no more than 10 deals per year, and you have hundreds of companies pitching. I would say in that sense, VCs in a better position of power, where they have a lot of deals presented and they can pick the best offers, proposal, and based on what they invested in the past, the mistakes, to just eliminate and just pass on some deals, right? So different context here, where for anyone starting to fundraise in 2024, you start with a disadvantage. So that's an important thing to know. And then it comes to asking yourself a question, because it's a lot of focus, energy, time away of not building actually a company answering real question. Is that the right path for you to start your company? Or why do you need money? And also there was the article from David Kay last week around why not investing in games, or why is it broken, basically, in games. Leo again. You have to be aware from the moment you raise from VCs, you have to deliver a multiplier, 5 to 10x, 20x. And if you're not set to build that company that can exit at, 100 million, a billion, 10 years from now, should you really go to the VC, right? And it's a real question. And I don't think, from what my conversation, all founders realize that when they're actually raising. And that's also the correction within the market. So that actually gave me a lot of reflection as well for myself. As you get in the journey and you commit to return money for funds, is that aligned with your business goals and what you want to do? And there are many tools these days and scrappy way to build things, test things fast with a bit of a budget, but you can still build something that is not $1 million budget to get started. So I think it's overall good that it's forcing team to ask themselves the right question in the business when money is not that easy. And sometimes it means that company should not exist at all. Or sometimes it means that you should de-risk your business, even for yourself, with as little money as possible before you actually go and raise.
Do you think at the end of the day, the best is to invest in yourself by yourself, or you will still stay, you should go with VCs?
So it's my third pivoting to a fourth venture. So I've seen some part of it for a while now. And the one that has survived is Rise and Play. And so what is the pattern of the one that made it and the others that so far haven't been proven yet, or the ones that were killed in the past, is I started very lean by myself, building resources, building a network, taking time actually even to answer myself, is this what I enjoy doing? Am I good at this? What do I need to build this business? And only year 3, I start to generate really substantial revenues through the coaching. But I didn't know that on the first year when I started, where I thought I create content and maybe I monetize through sponsorship or, other forms or class subscription. I had to try a lot of things with my own cost and on the side of a full-time job, right? So there's something to, I would say, value about it, where you are not pressed by the time and the money you have to spend. And you're actually taking really the time to iterate, learn. And now I know that I really want to build a business like this. Minimum cost, a team that can be hands-on, that can put, value into building the product, progress with it without hiring an army of people, and getting to the answers really with the hat of a product manager as quick as possible, before we even say, hey, this is a good business where if you put 500,000, 1,000,000, we are confident that we can return it to you with a multiplier. Because I can empathize for investor investing myself, and I'm very critical about my own business. Like, would I even invest in it myself? And it's a very uncomfortable question, because when you can't answer that with a big yes, you have to really examine it and ask yourself, am I building the right thing, you know?
Yes, I love how you carry weight, in all what you are doing. And it seems like Rise and Play has been this project since the beginning, actually. You mentioned you spoke several times about several different projects, Rise and Play being one of them. What was the most complicated for you at first when speaking to VCs? Because at the end of the day, we explain what it is a VCs, but then what is complicated when you are in front of them, when it finally happened?
So I'll confess something here. I've been so super scared of VCs. So I've been 16 years now in the gaming industry, and I was for a long time, I don't know, they scare me. They represent power. They have a lot of money. They are not people like me. They are not dressed like me. They don't hang out in places like me. So different that I felt like completely out of place. And I was postponing, the day when I had to talk to them. So that's what led me to start with a game company, Kylan, end of last year. Was I need to confront that fear. I can't skip it. If I need to build the company, it's like grow up. I really entered the journey with curiosity to learn. And who are VCs? So I educated myself a lot, read books. So one book I can highly recommend that has, I would say, is your one-on-one for VCs is called Venture Deals. And it was actually given to me by my friend Tatiana Kondratieva, who's the CEO, founder of Playpack. So we pass on that book, and she got it from the reference from Joachim Akran, so if there's one book you should read before fundraising, read that book, please. And I realized, wow, I didn't know what I didn't know. And it all makes sense. So what did it make sense about VCs? What's the model? So they're a structure where you have associates, principals, partners with all like those fancy titles. And if you don't know that, you need to understand that because it matters. And you have a general partner and the founding partners. So you do have that pyramid of decision making and power. And basically, you have the people on our more associate level and sometimes even principal that are the people that source the deals, so they are here to curate the deals, get the contact, but they are not necessarily decision makers. And so when you pitch, the first important question to VCs, who are you pitching to? The person you're pitching to. Are you pitching to the decision maker? Or are you pitching to the messenger? Because then this is where your pitch is at real test, because how you're going to pitch it with your actual document and the way you present it, how much will stay with the person when they have to pitch it again internally and help by your materials, right? So if you have a very complicated idea that you are still figuring out how to verbalize it and make it very stupid simple, then you can guess that it will not make it to the decision makers in something that is appealing. So I learned through that process to take shortcuts, like shortcut communication, make us present the story of your business in a very logical way that makes sense, that, make the connection in your brain. And it's a discovery process, because what makes sense for you when you spend several months on it, it's like, okay, it totally makes sense to me. And you share with somebody who has no idea of what it is. They barely remember of what actually it is. And it's most of the time not accurate to what it is. And then in the structure of VCs, they have a certain amount of money that they get from private individuals. It could be institutions. It could be wealthy individuals, limited partners. So they have received money from different places and they are accountable for that money. So they are managing a portfolio, of investment. So when I think about the responsibility for VCs, it must be hard. You are really responsible for the return and making the right decision. So when I understood that, I was like, wow, okay, maybe they're not, that bad or evil, because I thought they were just like having money, but they are representative of people who have money. And so they have also their own challenges, their own bias that they have to navigate through to make decisions. And then you have a fund, usually that is formed of a certain amount. That's why you see funds starting with 30 million. And sometimes they start to even invest in companies even before they finish to close their fund to 50 million. So they are themselves fundraising. So one of the feedback was funny, like some of the VCs interested in leading in our seed round said, we are really interested. We could commit, but also we are fundraising for a second fund. So, this needs to progress before we can commit. So it's also something to keep in mind. So this is also fundraising on their end. So they understand also their process. There are their own challenges. And the portfolio is tested. So I really see an opportunity here of empathy and collaboration when you understand actually what VC stands for and what's their incentive. And it's important to understand the incentive. How are VCs members paid? They are paid with management fees. So they take a percentage per year of the portfolio value, right? So they are highly paid. So it allows them, to, administrative, own salary of the people working there. It's really high salary. It could be 1% of the management fund, so it's generous, those are usually the models. And so that's why some of them look in a very wealthy lifestyle, and they have that identity because they are. And the incentive is, can they raise for the other fund and grow and make exits with their first fund, where they're able to make good decision and return the money with a certain multiplier to the partners, the limited partners. And that's how, a fund grows and get reputation. So there's a whole marketing angle also. And it's in their interest to have good relationship with companies that are pitching to them, because at the end of the day, maybe you're not the right fit today, but you manage to raise with another fund. And then in the future, you become a super unicorn and you need to grow, and you will talk to the people who have been kind of nice to you, supported you, even if they said no to you, right? So understanding that as well, that it's not in the interest of a VC to give you painful feedback that maybe help you really, but for the relationship, it can break it, right? So there's always a bit of a risk of that, and it's being aware. And there's a way to get still feedback if you really want to understand what didn't work, but it's also being reasonable to not force VC and expect that they would give you all the feedback, because it's not in their interest to do that in the moment for the bigger game they need to play. So how does that land on you, Claire, from that, your world of games marketing, which is quite far away?
I'm swimming into all this information, and now I'm really wondering, actually, like when we had this big wave of rising, did co-founder really knew at the end of the day what they signed? I mean, I hope they did, of course, for all the team. But I mean, it's so different that what we are learning in the gaming studio. Is it something you learned in your past experience, all of this, or all came from the book that you read, basically?
From the book, from talking to a lot of founders. So my process has been talking to a lot of people. I would advise this. You talk to the maximum of people who have managed to raise, the ones who did not manage to raise, the one that could be friends as investors and would give you friendly feedback. So I talk to a lot of people, and I'm a very analytical mind. So I absorb a lot of information and then I structure it. So here I'm handing over the executive summary of like a lot of months of talking and learning by doing as well. And not all founders know that. It's just a common knowledge that, okay, let's raise with VC, let's talk to VCs. And the implication, I don't think, are always mentioned clearly until you sign. And that's why also I think we have that big correction where in the past, those conversations, maybe we're not going in that detail. It's like, what is the cost and the risk at lower interest to invest in that company, 1 or 2 million? We need to deploy the fund anyway. We have like 50 million hanging. We are expected to, spend. So let's spend. And, we're going to learn anyway by spending. So it was a very different mindset, different situation, where now it's like, okay, we've learned, and we have to spend wisely. So now we're actually doing a very thorough due diligence, and it's good. But then that's where the reality check is for a lot of businesses, if they try to raise it further, like the second round. And every founder, I would say, from 2024 should know that before they go to VCs, and ask themselves, is this really the route they want to go? Or is it a loan, for example, where you would return the money with an interest rate, but at least you are not expected to grow a unicorn? Or are you going through angel investors and it's a different game? Or are you going through crowdfunding? Or are you building something completely different where you will not be relying so much on capital upfront, which I would say for games is a must, especially AAA games, as I was spending time on it. I was really looking at the model, like this is a really hard one. Even mobile looks suddenly a bit more generous because mobile you could create, I don't know, hyper casual games super quickly, right? At lower cost. So all those questions should be factored in before you decide if you want to raise or not, with VCs at least.
100%. And I think another one we are not speaking a lot about is all the governmental help for gaming. Gaming stay something belonging to art. At least in France, we are really privileged and lucky to have some funds. So this also may be a solution for people listening to us. And actually, you explained it like this is there are those wealthy guys that sometimes know about gaming, sometimes a bit less, but this is a story you never know before you met them, but you don't know who you are going to meet. But at the end of the day, do they care more about your project, your team, or your financials as they need to, at the end of the day, get a return? What do they care about?
Yeah, that really depends on the stage. So when you are pre-seed, you have basically nothing but your team and a good idea. So you're a pitch. So it's mostly about the team. So the question becomes more for VC, do we believe in that team in executing that business idea? What have they done in the past that increase their chances, right? Is it a network? Is it experience? What is their experience together? So if you do start and you start to raise and you have not built anything, it's a very hard sell. And you are a brand new team, very, very hard sell. And then as you get later in seed stage, by that time it's expected in 2024, wasn't the case again 3 to 5 years ago, you need to have some form of validation of market traction. Why are you solving a problem that matters, basically? Like with your game, with your idea. Why do we need another puzzle game? Whoever is pitching a puzzle game, or why do we need another shooter game? And that's why platform tech tools are much more straightforward proposals these days, because there's a challenge of the cost of development. There's a challenge of time to market. There's a challenge of go-to-market strategy. And any business that are really solving those problems to make it easier for any company to become a winning advantage, they are actually solving a problem that matters now in the industry. That's why content and more mobile games is a very hard sell, for example. Any content, only. So that's what they look at. And round A is like pure numbers. It's really numbers. You need to have your revenues. You need to have, how you manage. So less on the emotional and the bet and the believing in the team. So it depends on the phases. And I'd say the pitch is actually the crystallization of that test when you are presenting to VC, because the clearer your vision is, like how much you have answered all the holes of your business idea, the more you can actually convey it in a short deck, a pitch, and that is crystal clear proposal. And that's why I still see that the pitching exercise is really an exercise is have you work on the clarity of your business enough, or answer some critical questions that you could sell it in a very crystal clear way, right? So that is still the instrument at the beginning, the pre-seed and seed, the pitching.
I got a really personal question as a woman. Why do you think like there is less women that are doing those pitch? Why do you think it's more men that go to this stage to pitch? Do you have any idea?
I have some guess, and that's also why I started the networking events at Rise and Play. Network matters a lot in the industry. So if you are connected with investors, this is already, you start from a good place. I'm lucky to say with Rise and Play, I am in that position. So I started with a certain advantage compared to someone just starting, like, I don't know anybody, right? So if you don't know VCs, you need to know people who know VCs. So you start to build your network of other founders who know well and who can introduce you. It's another shortcut as well in how you get attention from VCs, like who is introducing you. And so when you're nobody and you try to go through the noise, it's difficult. I'm not saying it's impossible. That was not my path, but I can imagine it's difficult. The network with a senior executive level, you don't see so many women first by number, like executive level is 10, 15% maximum, CEO 10%, founders. And on the investment side, even lower, right? I saw a photo the other day of women representing partners or associates in game funds. And I think there were 10 or 15 on the picture, like for the whole industry. I hope it was not the whole industry, but I was like, it's worth celebrating, but it's a very, very small number when we are 300,000 professionals in games, So lack of women on the investment side, lack of women on leadership side, not having the networking connection. And because we don't have network and exposure to that kind of conversation like we have today, then it's so foreign, so far that it's like, I'm not going to even try. It's just too scary. I'm going to fail. And I'm so grateful today that I have women coming to me to get coaching that I want to do this for myself. I want to invest in myself. And I see more women stepping up, and I take my destiny and I want to get there. So there will be more. And, it's getting that boost, that support. So there's quite a lot of gap in network mostly, and representation.
And this is a gap actually you are really overcoming with Rise and Play. I've been listening to the podcast, and I would say this is really like a tool of empowerment that is priceless. Sophie, I get a question. So still around women, because of course, like we are as women super interesting into this topic. What advice would you give to other women who are preparing to pitch their project or ideas in today's competitive landscape? So you said it, there is a lot of puzzle games out of there, and maybe some other one coming from the big one. So what is your advice?
I'd say we need more women trying building company in the first place. That's how you learn. That's how you get better, and keep trying. But if you never start, never try, then you don't signal to other women to try as well. So I would say for women who have the idea, there are some support. There are some VCs that are emerging to really support women. It will take some time, but I've seen the past. I've been connecting with some of them. They are building those funds, and I'm happy to share the names when they will be more visible. So there's that revolution happening. So don't get discouraged. And there's also a huge support and sisterhood of other women who are CEOs and founders in games, and they would always support. So you're not alone. And second, I would say to give more business probability for you to succeed is really if putting yourself in the business hat, or if you don't have it, partner with someone who had that business hat and think really of your company as a business and why you with your unique angle. And this is where it hasn't been an exploited advantage, but we as women, we have our own perspective of the world, and we would create a company, a product, a game that other category groups couldn't create. And if we go deeper, even in the lens of who we are, do we have multicultural background? Do we have a hobby that we are so passionate about? Tap into it and build on top of it. That's why for me, Rise and Play has been such an obvious business for me, because I would even do it in my free time while not being paid. I was breathing it like every minute of my life. And so you understand that this is the thing I'm meant to do, and I will be paid for it, and I'm skilled to do it, right? So I would say I encourage women to not try to be someone else, be, competing with their counterpart men in doing something similar, but tap into really what they're gifted to do, because probably it's not served right now just by numbers, So as we say, maybe there still like half of audience in games are women. I don't think they played all the game they could play as women. Some have tried in some direction, but there's probably much more to tap into if you go really deep in the niches.
And breaking some walls. I love it, Sophie. I think we are approaching the end of the podcast. There is a last question I want to ask you. In one word, how pitching makes you feel? Happy.
I try to get the emotion, and I shouldn't be thinking, I should be feeling excited. Actually, that was the feeling I was getting. I thought I would be scared. I was excited. I was like, I'm going to take the challenge. I'm going to learn. So I was curious the whole process, the whole journey, even in the worst moments where, I mean, usually it's not that unpleasant. People tell you it's great, it's interesting, no one wants to really offend you. And then you just get a no. So it's not that uncomfortable. Or some get really triggered, and then it's like, okay, fine, well, it's not for you. And then you just move on, But overall, I was really excited, and I would encourage to come with that feeling, because you are your company in that moment. You represent. So the energy you bring, are you convinced of what you're doing? If you're not, no one else will be either, So it was fine, fine. It was not as bad as I thought it would be.
What does it make you feel now?
Grateful. I learned a lot, and I'm very grateful for people who have, whether from investment side or peers, been candid enough to give me feedback throughout the whole process to learn that fast. It didn't take me years to learn that quickly. It took me a few months, and that's what I wanted. You remember the crash dummies I told you about? That was the process of crash dummies with the pitching, that I did my crash course, of pitching, fundraising, not saying that I'm a master at it. It's like, when you try something, a product or a company, a strategy, you try with what you don't know. And then with all the learning, then you have a much better strategy. And then, like, I'm going to approach it very, very differently based on all I know. And that's more of a mindset I have. So I'm very grateful for all of that in such a short time.
It's only the beginning, Sophie, and I'm excited to see what you will achieve in the next episode. Thanks a lot for sharing. It was a really insightful episode, Sophie. And what I wish I knew before pitching is that I need to listen this podcast again, basically. Thank you, Sophie.
Thank you, Claire. And we'll tune in for future episode. I'm not going to spoil it, but it's going to be a very interesting one, our next one, as we brainstormed about it. And we said we will cover unspoken topics with Claire, so it will be a very unspoken one. So stay tuned for the next one. And thanks again, Claire, today. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Sophie.
Thanks for listening to this latest episode of the Rise and Play podcast. I am growing a community of conscious leaders across the industry and beyond. If you want to join this movement, please share the podcast with other conscious leaders, because we have so much more we can learn from each other. If you've enjoyed this episode, please follow and rate the show on Spotify or your other favorite podcast platform. It will help other growing leaders to discover the show and benefit from the valuable insights. If you would like to grow rapidly your leadership skills, you can find more insights on riseandplay.io, where you will also find my free masterclass on conscious leadership and other resources that I offer. Have a great week, and remember to take care of yourself. Until the next time.